What if I told you that the exact same process that gave us, well, every living thing on Earth could also solve a really complex math problem? I know, it sounds a little like science fiction, but it's totally real. Today, we're going to dig into this powerful idea that natural selection isn't just about biology, it's a fundamental algorithm. And to really get it, we're going to watch a computer literally evolve an answer right before our eyes.
So here's the big question for today. How in the world can a machine, without being given the answer ahead of time, actually evolve a solution? It's this process that mirrors nature in a pretty amazing way. And to understand it, we've got to see what the computer is seeing.
Okay, so the computer starts off with a whole population of completely random guesses. Each guess, like this string of numbers you see here, is what the algorithm calls a chromosome. Think of it as just one possible and probably very wrong answer to the problem. It's basically a single individual in a brand new digital population. So, how do we get from this mess to the right answer?
Well, the secret sauce is in a special kind of program called an evolutionary algorithm. Or, to be even more specific, a genetic algorithm. A genetic algorithm is basically a problem-solving method that's directly inspired by Darwinian evolution. It takes that core idea of survival of the fittest and just applies it to data. So each potential solution, each chromosome, gets tested to see how good it is. The best ones, they get to reproduce and create the next generation of solutions. And the worst ones, well, they just die off. But before we can really wrap our heads around all this computer wizardry, we have to go back to the source. We need to understand the original, totally revolutionary idea that Charles Darwin put out there way back in 1859.
Now, this is super important to get. Darwin actually proposed two different ideas. The first was evolution, the basic observation that species change over time. That one was accepted pretty quickly by scientists. But it was his second idea, natural selection, the how, the actual mechanism that explains why that change happens, that turned out to be way more controversial. In fact, it faced huge resistance for decades.
Darwin's whole mechanism is actually beautiful in its simplicity. It really just rests on three pillars. First, variation. Just look around. Individuals in any population are not all identical. Second, inheritance. Those little variations can be passed down from parents to their kids. And third, selection. There's a struggle for existence, which means individuals with traits that give them an edge are more likely to survive and have kids of their own. And that simple process, that's it. That's natural selection. It's not some cosmic force picking winners and losers. It's just the inevitable result. The organisms with the better traits end up leaving more offspring, which makes those traits more common over time. It's simple, it's powerful, and back then, it was a seriously dangerous idea. And all that controversy led to this really dramatic period in the history of science. It was a time when Darwin's main idea, natural selection, was almost thrown out completely.
It's honestly hard for us to imagine now, but it's true. The science historian Peter J. Bowler points out that by the start of the 1900s, many biologists were so skeptical that they were openly talking about the eclipse or demise of natural selection. They thought it was a dead end.
So, why all the backlash? Well, there were four huge problems. First, physics. The famous Lord Kelvin calculated that the Earth wasn't nearly old enough for such a slow process to work. Second, the puzzle of inheritance. Nobody knew how traits were passed on, and the popular idea was that they'd just blend together and disappear, like mixing paint. Third, fossils. The record just seemed too patchy, with too many gaps. And finally, a more philosophical problem. A lot of scientists just couldn't stomach the randomness of it all. They wanted to see a purpose, a direction in evolution.
But here's the fascinating part. Even while all the top scientists were arguing about the how, about natural selection, the evidence for the what, the fact that evolution was happening, was just getting stronger and stronger, thanks to a ton of amazing fossil discoveries.
So how does the story end? How did Darwin's big idea make such a huge comeback? Well, the answer to that brings us right back to our original mystery, that little problem-solving computer. The big revival happened in the mid-20th century with something called the modern synthesis. Basically, scientists rediscovered the work of Gregor Mendel on genetics, and it was the missing piece of the puzzle. Mendel's work showed that traits are passed down in these discrete little packages, we call them genes, that don't blend away. And just like that, the inheritance problem was solved, and natural selection was put right back where it belonged, at the very center of evolutionary theory.
Okay, so with Darwin's theory back on solid ground, computer scientists in the 1970s had this brilliant aha moment. They thought, wait a minute, What if we could borrow nature's time-tested algorithm to solve our problems? This is where all the pieces finally click together.
This table really lays it all out. It's a direct translation. In biology, you have an individual. In the algorithm, that's just a potential solution, our chromosome. The biological environment, that's just the problem we're trying to solve. An individual's biological fitness translates to the quality of the solution. And reproduction is just the process of creating new, hopefully better, solutions by combining the best parts of the old ones, with a few random tweaks thrown in, just like mutation in nature.
So let's look at the specific environment our digital critters are trying to survive in. The computer's goal is simple. Find 4 numbers that, when you plug them into this formula, get you a result as close to 0 as you can. That's it. Getting a low score is the entire struggle for existence in this digital world.
Hey, remember that first random chromosome we looked at? Well, if we plug its numbers into the equation, we get a result of 46. Since the goal is 0, a lower score is better. So 46 is this individual's fitness score. Yeah, it's not very fit at all, but hey, you got to start somewhere.
The algorithm then goes through and checks the fitness score of every single chromosome in its population. The ones with better scores, the ones closer to 0, are given a higher chance of being picked to create the next generation. It's kind of like a weighted lottery. You can see here, the fittest solution, chromosome 4, has the best odds of winning. This is digital natural selection in action. The fittest individuals get to pass on their genes, hoping to create an even better kid.
So what's the big takeaway here? The fact that we can apply Darwin's core principles to something as abstract as a math problem, that suggests we've stumbled onto something much, much bigger than just biology. It looks like we've found a universal problem-solving algorithm. This incredible idea actually has a name: universal Darwinism. It's the theory that evolution by natural selection isn't just for living things. It's a fundamental principle that explains how you get complex, really well-designed systems from a simple process of variation, inheritance, and selection. And it doesn't matter if that system is life, or an economy, or a computer program.
And today, this amazing algorithm is being used to solve all sorts of real-world problems. Engineers use it to evolve more efficient designs for jet engines. Financial firms use it to evolve smarter trading strategies. We have literally taken nature's greatest invention and turned it into one of our most powerful tools for innovation.
Which really leaves us with this final, mind-bending question. For billions of years, the slow, steady, relentless algorithm of natural selection has been designing the most complex thing we know of: life itself. Now that we finally understand the code, what incredible things could we design with?